Okay, my name is Steve Mosher. I've been an engineer for a long time, followed by practice of law in intellectual property. And so what you've been telling me is there's a lot of familiar ground there. That's a long story, so we may get to part of that but later.
So tell me about your kind of intersection with Tandy.
Okay, I was working as an engineer for about 9 years and for 3 companies. And the company I was with in mid-'79 was going out of business of the products that I was designing.
What was it?
Commercial sound. And so the vice president said, I think you need to start looking because we're going to get out of this line. I really appreciated that offer. And so didn't take long. I got recruited by Tandy to come and figure out how to make their Model 1, TRS-80 Model 1, comply with the new FCC rules for interference, RF interference, which was, the Model 1 was a very successful product in the marketplace, but it was also successful as a generator of interference. And so my task was to figure out what it would cost to modify it. And it didn't cost much, but that was way too much, as you might understand from what Paul just talked about. The margin was everything. But after that, they decided to kill the Model 1, and they had a Model 2 on the drawing boards. And it was a business machine, and we weren't too worried about the RF radiation from it because the limits were a lot more lenient. But they asked me to test the resistance to arcs, sparks that might occur, which the floppy drive systems in that machine were very sensitive to RF interference, and it was generated by arcs that might be on the power line or something. So after a month or so of that, I began to work on the TRS-80 Model 3, a new machine. But I got involved a little bit late, so my task was to figure out a way to modify it. And it was a design that had all of the components were in one enclosure. And it was not designed with a view toward minimizing interference. So we spent quite a bit of time testing to get that to comply with the FCC rules, but we got it done. And after that came the color computer, working with Jerry Heap and some others. He had been working on a product called the Videotex machine and Green Thumb, which had some of the precursor elements in it. And so I worked on that. There were several models of the color computer. And throughout the first 10 years of my career there, I worked on most of the Tandy computers, making sure they comply with the FCC rules. And along the way, I was responsible for the UL Underwriting Laboratory certifications. So that was kind of my main task. I also did some design work on switching power supplies and working with Jerry Heap on a modem design. He was kind of Mr. Modem, but I had an idea, and so we collaborated on it. And that was interesting. That really came a little bit later, because after 10 years, I started working there in 1979, and after 10 years, my supervisor said, you need to learn about how to get patent applications. Become registered as a patent agent. I said, well, okay. So I did that, and I began to work with the Tandy Law Department on patent matters, particularly claims of infringement and helping with patent applications. And so after a couple of years of that, I was transferred to the law department, and then they sent me to law school. So that's how that came about. And
was that good? I mean, good? Had you?
I had never thought about that. It was just out of the blue, and the more I thought about it, and it didn't take long, this is going to be a good opportunity. So I did. Went to school at night, worked during the day, and had some really interesting projects. There was a lawsuit against the Model 3 that I helped the lawyers understand some of the technical aspects of it. It was a terrible case. A hobbyist who was a shotgun reloader had a hobby room in his garage with a Model 3 and a printer was connected to the Model 3 and an electric fan. And he had 70 pounds of gunpowder stored in a closet that was unsealed. It was not well contained. There was gunpowder in the carpet. Well, you can imagine what happened. It exploded, burned the house down, killed 2 people. And the courtroom battle was a battle between 2 experts in how the fire got started. And the Model 3 was the accused culprit. And so my role was to kind of listen and advise the attorneys what was going on related to that. Well, the other side, the plaintiff had an expert who was not nearly as effective as the defense expert that we had. And so the court found for the defense, and the poor family got nothing. It was a very sad situation, but it was an interesting exposure to the courtroom experience. Other things I did was I managed the patent portfolio for Tandy. That's when I worked on the modem project with Jerry. And when the sale for AST Research came along in '93, I helped with the due diligence for that. Tandy had licenses from IBM and Texas Instruments for patents we used in our computing product line. And we had to renew those, so I helped look at some of the claims that they had against our products. We had claims of infringement from other people. Gerald Lemelson, Gilbert Hyatt were 2 engineers, inventors who asserted their intellectual property gifts against everybody they can think of. And so that was interesting work. So anyway, as Paul mentioned, after the sale to AST Research, why there was no more Tandy computer business. And so I hung around doing patent work for the firm, for Tandy. And that kind of dried up because Tandy was no longer in the manufacturing business. And so I found work as an attorney in North Dallas, not far from here. And after 6 years, came back to Fort Worth, where I'd been for 20 years, still practicing. So Tandy opened a couple of doors, and a very interesting time.
And is that still your area of kind of legal expertise?
I'm a patent attorney doing intellectual property law for clients.
It's got to be something that is in constant demand.
It's very interesting. And the beauty of it is it builds on the 20 years experience I had as an engineer. It makes that job more satisfying.
And probably an expertise that's rather unique.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask the same question.
Sure.
If you look back over a kind of span of time, and not necessarily only the things you were involved with,
Okay.
you see where we've come. I mean, it's just been an evolution that, I mean, exponential changes.
Oh, it's a very different world now than it was. It was a very different world in 1995 or 2000.
Yeah.
And it's just accelerated, like you said.
Can you talk about what are the things that have, I don't know, been more either surprising or quite impressive about the things that have accelerated?
Well, the arrival of the Apple iPhone was just a major product introduction, and Apple has found a way, after the success of their early computers, to really come up with spectacular innovations. And they charge a lot of money for them, but they're very successful. Their design expertise is probably second to none. And so just to see how fast things have changed from the internet in the 90s to what it is now. It's just incredible. And I started out in electronics with vacuum tube circuits in the Air Force. So it's interesting.
I have a good friend named Andy Van Dam, who's very involved in computer graphics and early first textbook on it, and he gave a lecture here, and he said, "This is not what we imagined." he is so distressed about this is not what we imagined.
Yeah.
So, what can I ask you, kind of to look onto the horizon? Anything interesting in particular that you see coming up?
The thing that's got everybody excited now is so-called artificial intelligence, which, in my view, is intelligence is a misnomer. Those products are software programs. They're algorithms that are very innovative, and they're very specifically designed to do one task. And there's no sentiousness about it. They're not conscious. They're not aware, self-aware like the human brain is. So to me, calling it artificial intelligence is a buzzword, but it's inaccurate. And but the capabilities are pretty amazing compared to what we knew before. And there needs to be a lot of industry effort toward developing policies and regulations about how to deal with the unknown consequences of this new technology. And that's the kind of thing we should have been having all along, and to some extent have, but the need now is probably more pronounced than we've ever encountered before, because it can have an amazing effect on society.
Do you want to just weigh in on the issues around copyright?
Copyright's one of them. There's a whole list of things that are at issue. Copyright, privacy, just runs the gamut.
Yeah.
So